When you look at the sands of the desert, have you ever imagined that each grain could carry stories as old as time itself? Imagine this: a man alone, walking under the scorching sky, driven only by faith in a promise that seemed impossible. This man, Abraham, was not just a shepherd or a leader. He became the root of two of the greatest lineages in history. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a story from thousands of years ago have anything to do with the challenges and conflicts of today's world? And more importantly, what does this have to do with me? Well, let me take you on this journey. Because what began with a promise in a distant desert has shaped human relationships, kingdoms, and even the power struggles we still see every day. Abraham was called to leave his homeland, Ur of the Chaldeans, a prosperous center of culture and commerce in ancient Mesopotamia. But he had no idea what awaited him. Imagine leaving everything you know, trusting only in the voice of a God who promised something extraordinary. I will make you a great nation. But this promise was not simple nor easy to understand. There was a small detail. Abraham and his wife Sarah were already of advanced age, too old, according to any human logic, to start a family, let alone create a nation. Still, they set out. Can you imagine the faith required for that? Now here is what few realize. This promise was not just for Abraham. It carried the seeds of a legacy that would spread in unexpected directions. Abraham had two sons, Ishmael and Isaac. Two sons who, in many ways, were equal, but whose lives took completely different paths. Isaac is seen as the heir to the divine promises, the foundation for the people of Israel. But what about Ishmael? He also received a promise that his descendants would be great, that he would become the father of 12 princes, and that his nations would prosper. Ishmael became the ancestor of the Arabs, creating a direct connection with Abraham that many ignore. So, why does this story matter? Because the tensions, rivalries, and even the conflicts we see today between Jews and Arabs have deep roots in these two lineages. It is fascinating and at the same time painful to realize that what began as a divine blessing was interpreted in ways that divided families and nations for centuries. What did Abraham feel upon seeing these promises taking such different paths? Did he understand that his actions would shape the history of the world, or did he just trust that in the end, the same God who promised would make everything fall into place? What I want to show you is that this story is not just about the past, it's about the present, and more than that, it's about how we, today, can find answers in a distant past. Ready to discover how this promise unfolded and shaped the world as we know it. So stay with me, because the journey has just begun. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your opinion in the comments. And so, from the promise in the desert, we arrived at the world we know today. But here's the most intriguing part. The connection between Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, and modern conflicts is not just historical. It is alive in the streets of Jerusalem, in peace negotiations, and even in the headlines we see almost daily. Think about it. What started with two family lineages has become a divide that crosses borders, beliefs, and generations. Today, Jews and Arabs share roots in Abraham, but history has created a barrier that has not always been easy to overcome. How did this happen? After World War II, in 1948, the creation of the State of Israel marked a turning point. It was a moment of celebration for the Jews, returning to the Promised Land, but also of loss for the Palestinian Arabs, who saw their homes and lands being occupied. Since then, the conflict has become a cycle of political, religious, and social tensions, with devastating consequences for both sides. Today, more than 75 years later, the conflict is not just about territory. It's about identity, security, and above all, dignity. according to recent data, more than 5 million Palestinians live as refugees, many in extremely difficult conditions. Meanwhile, Israel faces constant threats to its security, investing billions of dollars in defense. What do these statistics tell us? That the promise of Abraham was interpreted in ways he could never have imagined. But here is something that is rarely discussed: how much these tensions are also fueled by external interests. During the 20th century, global powers used the Middle East as a stage for their political and economic disputes. Oil, geopolitics, and religion mixed in an explosive manner, further widening the divisions between Jews and Arabs. Despite this, there are stories of hope. In recent years, agreements such as the Abraham Accords, signed in 2020, have shown that reconciliation is possible. These agreements allowed countries like Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain to establish diplomatic and economic ties. It is a powerful reminder that even in the most complex situations, there are paths to peace. But you might be wondering, why does this matter to me? Because this story is not just about Jews and Arabs. It's about how we choose to live together in a world full of differences. It's about recognizing that even amidst conflicts, there is a shared humanity that connects us. Now, I want to know your opinion. What do you think we can learn from this story? Leave your comment below. And if you are enjoying this journey that we are exploring together, feel free to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this content with anyone you think might also be interested. Now, do you know about the reconciliation initiatives that are shaping a different future? Because, believe me, not everything is lost. There is a path to peace, and it can begin with something as simple as an act of understanding. And here we are, faced with an essential question. Amid centuries of conflict, how can we find paths to reconciliation? What is more powerful, the divisions that separate us or the human will to build bridges? Believe me, there are stories that prove reconciliation is not just a dream, but a real possibility. In recent years, we have seen examples that challenge narratives of hate and show how dialogue can transform lives. Let me tell you an inspiring story. A few years ago in Jerusalem, a group of Palestinian and Israeli mothers decided to break the cycle of pain and revenge. They came together in a project called Parent Circle, where they shared their stories of loss, but also of hope. Imagine the power of these women, who lost children in a conflict, sitting together not to point fingers, but to find solutions. They proved that no matter how devastating the pain, empathy is capable of transcending barriers. But it is not only individuals who have been working for a better future. International initiatives, such as the aforementioned Abraham Accords, have brought significant advances. These agreements, signed in 2020, not only established diplomatic ties between Israel and several Arab countries, but also opened doors for economic and cultural collaborations. Have you thought about the impact of this? Israeli and Emirati companies working together, exchanging knowledge and creating opportunities. It's not a complete solution, but it's a step in the right direction. Another example that moves me is the work of organizations like Seeds of Peace, which brings together young people from conflict regions to participate in leadership programs. These young people, Jews, Muslims, and Christians, live together for weeks, learning about each other's differences, but also about the similarities they share. Some of these young people leave these programs with a completely new perspective, determined to be agents of change in their communities. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment what the world would be like if these stories of reconciliation were the rule, not the exception. What would it be like to live in a Middle East where peace was more than an idea, but a tangible reality? Of course, the path is not easy. There are enormous obstacles, such as political divergences, extremism, and historical distrust. But do you know what all these stories have in common? The courage of ordinary people who decided not to wait for leaders or governments, but took the initiative to make a difference. And I ask myself, what can we learn from this? Can we also be agents of reconciliation in our own communities, even if the challenges seem insurmountable? If you have made it this far, it is because you believe there is something more to discover, to learn, and to share. So, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's dive now into the universal lessons of this story and explore how they can inspire changes not only in the Middle East, but around the world. Don't miss it, because the best stories are yet to come. Throughout this journey, we explored the past, faced the challenges of the present, and witnessed the power of dialogue. But now I want you to reflect on something. What do these stories tell us about who we are as human beings? What lessons can we take from these ancient promises and apply them to our lives today? The answer lies in the essence of the promises made to Abraham. They were not just about land or descendants. They were about something greater: faith, resilience, and the vision of a shared future. Think about it. Two lineages arose from Abraham, each with its own purpose and trajectory. But deep down, both carry the same principle: the search for meaning, identity, and connection. See, the modern world is more interconnected than it has ever been. The cultural, religious, and historical differences that once separated us now coexist in a shared space where every decision we make can have a global impact. So isn't it time to reconsider how we view these stories? A powerful example comes from the concept of tikkun olam, a central idea in Judaism that means repairing the world. It reminds us that each of us has the power and the responsibility to contribute to a better world. This concept is not exclusive to Jews. It resonates in Islam, Christianity, and many other traditions. Think of the verse from the Quran that says, "Whoever saves a life, it is as if they have saved all of the humanity." These words challenge us to go beyond our differences and act with compassion. But how does this apply to today's world? This is where the lesson becomes universal. Abraham's faith teaches us that even in the midst of impossible circumstances, there is hope. His story shows us that great changes begin with small acts of faith and courage. And this idea is not something distant or theoretical. It is practical and powerful. For example, organizations around the world are using these lessons to create programs for peace, education, and social justice. Interfaith movements are promoting dialogues between Jews, Christians, and Muslims, showing that it is possible to find common ground. And more importantly, ordinary people like you and me are realizing that reconciliation begins at home, in our own communities, our families, and our daily interactions. The promise to Abraham also reminds us that our actions have an impact beyond our lives. When Abraham chose to trust in God, he could not imagine the reach of his decision. In the same way, every choice we make today can influence future generations. Are we planting the right seeds? Now I invite you to think about what this means to you. How can you be an agent of change? How can the promises of faith, reconciliation, and courage transform the way you see the world and interact with it? If this story touched you in any way, I would love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment sharing your opinion. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Your participation helps spread these messages of hope and unity to more people. And so we come to the end of this journey, but in truth, it is just the beginning. Because the story of Abraham, Ishmael, and Isaac is not just about the past, it is about what we do with these lessons today. It reminds us that no matter how divided the world may seem, there is always room for reconciliation and hope. Think about it. Over the centuries, the descendants of Abraham have faced immense challenges. Wars were fought, lands were disputed, and generations grew up under the weight of promises and conflicts. But at the same time, these stories also produced moments of unity, courage, and unwavering faith. What truly moves me is that, despite all the divisions, there is something that unites these two lineages: the desire to live in peace and prosperity. Whether they are Jews, Arabs, or any other people, deep down, we all share the same longing for dignity, security, and belonging. Now, I want to leave you with an important message. In a world that often emphasizes our differences, perhaps it's time to focus on our similarities. Abraham could not foresee the impact that his faith would have on billions of people throughout history, but he left us a powerful example: that trusting in the future, even when it seems uncertain, can change everything. And we don't need to wait for global leaders to solve all the problems. As we have seen, great changes begin with small actions. Dialogue, mutual respect, and the willingness to listen to others can be the first steps to transforming not only our communities but also the world. Therefore, I challenge you to carry this message forward. In your daily interactions with your family, your friends, or even in difficult conversations, remember that each act of love, understanding, and empathy can create a greater impact than we imagine. I want you to leave this video with one certainty: peace is possible. And it starts with each one of us, because, in the end, the world is not divided only by borders or religions, but by choices. And the good news is that we can choose love, unity, and reconciliation. Thank you very much for staying with me until now. Your presence and your time are precious, and I hope this reflection has brought something valuable to your life. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your opinion in the comments. I would love to know how this story touched you and what you think we can do to create a better world. And remember, each of us is part of this great story. May we continue writing chapters of hope, faith, and unity. Until the next video, take care and may peace be with you.